important.
Yeah, very important. Scarlet obviously started off with a good day yesterday, only losing to Solar and already beating Spirit, which is one of the competitors for the slot. But before I get ahead of myself, let's get into the game as we've loaded on to Site Delta. And we are spawning in top left-hand side, representing the Shopify Rebellion. It is Scarlet.
All right, and in the bottom right spawning as our Blue Protoss player, representing Basilisk, it is Trigger.
So yeah, Trigger, both of them played Solar yesterday and lost. Scarlet took a map of Solar though, which is very nice, and she beat Spirit already, so I think a good day one for her. Trigger took a map of Gumiho, but so theoretically Trigger played Seed 1 and 2 and lost to both, so you would say it's not that bad, but I think kind of need to beat Gumiho. I think Gumiho is one of the players where he has a chance to beat. So Trigger really needs to win this, and Scarlet, if she advances, it would be really, really, really nice if she wins this. Because if she beats Trigger, she just needs to beat one out of like Hero Marine and Gumiho, which she can definitely beat.
Yeah, CVT seems very powerful when it comes from Scarlet. Good understanding of the matchup. Slightly different playstyle than others at times. We see heavy Hydra usage there. Hydra into Infestor. And I wonder how aware Gumiho is of that. I wonder if he thought about that a whole lot. Hero Marine, of course, a mech player right now at the moment, so that's also going to be interesting. For now, let's just take a look here at this Protoss versus Zerg. Trigger, what are we expecting out of good old Trigger here, Lambo?
I'm not entirely sure. I know that Trigger played a ton of custom games with Cyril in preparation for this. As they are teammates, I think they play like almost every day, so there's a good chance that he's been cooking up something that I'm not entirely aware of. He usually plays relatively standard though. He was pretty good, I think, not last year, but 2 years ago with the Blink Stalker style when the hero style came out. And I think last year his ZVP just got worse, like actually worse than it was 2 years ago. But now with all the practice games against Cyril, I think maybe he figured out a new style. I would like to see some more defensively oriented play style. I've seen him play relatively well with Storm, just staying defensive, trying to get up 4 bases and then go from there. So I hope he does something like that. Obviously, he can also just have something prepared, like he could go for some random charge builds, stuff like that, if he thinks that Scarlet is playing a little bit too greedy, which she is known for sometimes.
Yeah, we are playing on side Delta, and this is charge lot heaven, as you know, Lambo.
I know that you think that. I don't know why exactly. Just
it's a gut feeling, Lambo. Usually, don't fight with the gut. All right. Me, my biases, and my powerful gut is all I need to play charge lot build here on side Delta. I actually played a charge lot build against Scarlet on this map. I'm pretty sure at DreamHack Atlanta as well. Charge lot builds are the hot new thing that has been happening. 4 gates, 6 gates, 8 gates. With a quick +1, we've seen all of it. But honestly, when I think of Trigger, I'm thinking more of a dude that loves his Blink Stalker. He's a blinking beast, and that's something that Scarlet will need to deal with. Scarlet, of course, is someone that likes droning, link styles. He's a huge fan of those. A bunch of links are out already. Gonna run around the map. Maybe can get a cancel here. Nah, Oracle's gonna spot this. Trigger should probably move back with that Oracle though, if this probe wants to stay alive. Instead, Trigger says, hey, if your links are here, there are no links at home, are there? And there are indeed no links at home. That means that these 2 adepts could potentially deal some serious damage. Third base gonna be delayed on the side of Trigger, but a couple of drones here are gonna fall. First drone going down right now, Oracle coming in as well. And that's a lot of workers here to lose in the first 4 minutes of this game.
Yeah. That's a wide decision from Trigger, honestly. If there were any Zerglings at home, like just 4, the game would have been insanely Scarlet favored. But instead now, it is Trigger favored. Now his third race is a lot later than usual, and he needs to stay at home with the second Oracle, otherwise it just dies again. So even though this looks bad at first, I think this is not the absolute worst case. For Scarlet, she can also now skip Spores for way longer, because as I said, like the Oracle just is forced to stay at home. He's also using up all the energy, so he can't even go to the other side of the map and activate anymore and kill a lot of stuff. And the first Oracle also took some hull damage. So yeah, just delaying the Spores means that this game is kind of just evened out. So I really like that call from Scarlet. She also now scouts the extra adept weapons, which is huge.
That's big.
She also was supply blocked, so that means she will have larva to make Zerglings now in time for this. And Trigger is in between the bases with the Oracle. He needs to watch out a little bit there, that he doesn't lose the oracles. I think even just keeping him high HP is important for these types of pushes.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Because they're often going to be in the line of fire at least a little bit when the queens try to push this away. It's really nice that if the Zerg moves out to deal with these... So basically what you want to do is you want to have the adepts in between bases or at least on creep, taking out creep tumors. And the way that Zerg deals with it is by pulling the queens. If you have 3 full HP oracles and you get 2 volleys with your adepts on queens, you can often just fight the queens and take out 1 or 2 queens at a high pace. But because these oracles were damaged and had low energy, this was actually a really nice hold out of Scarlett. Yes, she built a crap ton of links, but she's gonna clear every single adept. And this was extremely committed out of Trigger. I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but there was a 3rd gate behind this as well, which delays the Forge, which delays the Twilight Council. So tech is late, and although the worker count here is looking good for Trigger, he should not be capable of moving onto the map until minute, what, 8? 7:50? Like, what timing are we looking at here for Scarlett to actually be afraid again?
Yeah, and on top of that, you can't even take a fort base, right? Usually you can just take a fort base with a couple of oracles and a couple of units, but if there's this many Zerglings on the map, which will soon also have +1, that is just not possible. Trigger is so afraid he's making a battery in natural. Oh no. He's making 2 batteries and a 3rd base and a cannon. I mean, this was... The adept attack was fine. It was just also poorly executed. You need to... The moment you finish the shade, you need to be off creep. You cannot be in the range of the queens. Because the moment the shade stops, you have time to surround the adepts with a Zergling. So at that point, you need to be far enough away from the queens so that the moment the Zerg engages, you can just activate the oracles and force the Zerglings back, which just didn't happen. And Scarlet now going for a Spire. Already went for the +1 in melee. How do you like the Spire here?
I don't know where it is. Oh, it's in the natural. Personally, not a huge fan. Although, I mean... It is a decision, I guess. I honestly would have preferred basically anything else because there's so much free time right now. And yes, mutas are great, but if mutas are gonna get spotted, I think Trigger is actually in a good spot. So it feels like Scarlett exposes her lead a bit more than she needs to. Like if you're going into Lurker here, you're gonna have Lurker by the time that Trigger gets to be on the map again. You know, you can play like Ling into Lurk. You don't even need to build any Banelings. If you want to play Hydra Ling Bane, I think you can hit some gnarly timings. I think a lot of things here could have been done. Not a huge fan of the Spire. Doesn't mean that it can't work.
Yeah, I think actually this is at the very least it is a good map for Spire, and the fort base is very exposed. So if Scarlet can force Trigger to split the units, even if he scouts the Spire, after an early game like this, oh my god, he's actually moving out with the Stalkers. He's crazy.
That is
at 8 minutes with 10 Stalkers.
That is not doable. You can't do this. I think Trigger is overestimating his position massively. He's gonna be forced to recall here at some point.
Blink forward, no.
It's a wild blink. This stasis is saving his life. Like if that stasis hadn't hit, like what is that? Like freaking 30 links, like 36 links or so. Like that's a recall, and you're gonna end up losing 2-3 Stalkers anyway. Even now, you're still pretty much being pushed back. There is no vision on that Spire. Trigger has no clue what's going on. Hasn't started any Phoenixes, and that means that a Phoenix response is now not viable anymore. On top of that, he's only on 6 gateways. He does not have the gateway count to get a lot of gateway units out. He doesn't have a lot of gateway units out. This just doesn't look good.
Yeah, he's just a little bit too far behind from the early game. Now, he does have 3 High Templars, and he needs fantastic storms. The mutas were revealed to the War Prism on the top, so they killed the War Prism, which means the Stalkers are in position at the natural, but that also means there's 1 less Warpin at the front, and Scarlet can just go and hammer down towards the forward base of Trigger.
Not the greatest controller against that initial stasis ward. First 2 storms are okay. 3rd storm pretty much useless, as this forward base, I think, is almost just toast here. Banelings now feel comfortable enough to just start rolling in towards the mineral line at the 3rd. Trigger's gonna lose a lot of workers. And with those workers, his chances of having a good ending to this game. Fort base will get taken out by some leftover links. Muta's honestly not dealing a lot of damage, but at least distracting a bunch of Stalkers here. Trigger is in a world of trouble. He's an absolute disaster. 1 more stasis ward is actually gonna hit literally the entire army of Scarlet, and that's going to at least delay the GG timing here a little bit. But I don't think that these these 20 seconds or so that he wins are gonna be capable of getting him in a good position. He doesn't have any batteries, doesn't have any storm, doesn't have cannons. He just has Stalkers and Oracles.
Yeah, he has Stalkers and Oracles, and even though Scarlet only has Roaches and Lynx, she just has more of it than her opponent, which this Nexus is also getting very low on HP. It feels very juicy to just click this. Even just the Banings will almost kill this by themselves. As they do start exploding on the workers, they end up going for the Nexus while 13 workers go down. GG is called, and Scarlet destroys Trigger on map number 1 here.
Yeah, this was not a close game at all. Trigger here struggling mightily in this matchup versus Scarlet. And yeah, just if you're committing this hard to an early game adept attack, with that fast third gate, getting, well, I think it was like, what, 6, 7 adepts out or so, and you don't deal that damage, I don't want to say that the game is over, but you're going to be playing from a serious deficit, and that's what happened here. And Scarlet just played it out properly. Trigger storms weren't great, didn't have a good wall set up at the fort base either. I also wonder if that is even the fort base that you really want if you're playing a storm style, because you kind of want to have a lot of walls, right? If you're playing storm, and I often think that taking that fort base at the 3 o'clock would have maybe been a little bit better here for Trigger.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. In either way, like if he takes the other one, you can attack in between the bases, and then you need to pre-split a little bit. I think either way it was a very, very difficult spot to be in. You just can't be down 70 supply if the other guy also has Mutas and many Banelings. Like it's very, very difficult, you know, to do anything. Anything can look bad at that point. And yeah, I mean, if you just want to deny creep, you can also do that with 2 gates. And I'm not even entirely sure why he made 3 gates for that.
Yeah, this seems like one of those gimmicks that people start believing in a little bit, you know? It's like, sometimes I have this, I look at a build, like, oh, if I had a 3rd gate there, I have 2 more adepts, 5 minutes and 22 seconds in. That sounds cool. But then it hurts you so much more. And yes, you're going to hit a slightly tighter timing, but then if that timing doesn't work at all, it just looks so much worse. And I guess the goal here was to kill way more workers than he actually ended up killing. Because yeah, just clearing creep you can do, as you mentioned, with 2 gates.
Yeah.
You don't need 3 gate of adept with for that. But yeah, solid win there for Scarlet. Although it was a rocky early game, managed to come back. Don't forget about that. There was 7 worker kills in the first 4 minutes at the price of 2 adepts. That is not ideal.
Yeah, I checked though, and I don't think it looked that bad. Because Trigger's third Nexus was delayed by like 20 seconds, and she skipped spores. So that's every spore you skip is like 2 extra drones mining, and she skipped them for very long. So I actually don't think it was that. I actually think she was slightly ahead before that already, before the adept attack hit, and then afterwards it was a complete disaster. Obviously,
yeah.
As you mentioned, you just can't do a heavily committed build, kill nothing, and lose all your units for free. It's just that doesn't sound like a good combination of things to happen to you in the early game.
Yeah, it's a bad gimmick to have. As what is Trigger doing here? I was just checking the gold. I was kind of hoping there's going to be like a pylon there and a Stargate, but unrealistic expectation there, Kevin. I'm sorry. I was gonna, So for the people that are not aware, if you're basically, imagine you're doing like a 2 Oracle Twilight build and you want to rush out Blink. Just adding 1 extra Oracle is going to delay your Twilight Council by about like 14 or 15 seconds or so. It's a pretty significant amount of time. So you want that 3rd Oracle to deal some damage. Now, if you're adding in Adepts, that basically lowers your Stalker count because it delays your gateway, and also it's using up a warp-in cycle, right? So you have less units that actually do something in the mid-game. So every single time you warp in 1 or 2 adepts, or in this case 3 adepts, you're just delaying a potential timing in the mid game. So you're basically borrowing from the mid game to make your early game stronger. And if your early game still ends up sucking after borrowing from, well, the mid game, the loan shark is going to show up and it's going to destroy you. And that's pretty much what happened there in that game. It's just all your aggressive timings are delayed. So Scarlet, we didn't really mention it much, but she got the drone up for free to like, what was it, like 86 or something? And there was not a single worry there. Like, she still had complete map control, could be aggressive, defended the 9 Stalker move out, and all of that with 86 drones, just because how bad that early game was and how much Trigger invested in there resource-wise.
Yep, very much so a snowball effect from a bad early game. It is... Yeah, you kind of hope for... You're hoping for mistakes at that point. From the Proto side that this Drake messes up the execution. And even then it was really rough. Like it would have needed to be a relatively big mistake, which Scarlet did not make. Scarlet's playing well so far in Katowice. She's 1-1 She has a good map score as well, a positive map score now. And she already played against Solar. So if I'm in Scarlet's shoes, I'm very happy with my position here.
Yeah, if I'm in Scarlet's shoes, I'm also happy. Because that also would mean that I would be playing in Katowice. You can swap me with most players at this point. I'd be a happy guy, Lambo. So you're going to have first Oracle coming out right now. Adept moving towards the middle of the map. She's going to occupy this tower. It's going to be a double Adept into Nexus. This is a slightly risky build order in case, again, there's like 10 links or so out on the map. You need to keep your Oracle at home. If you don't keep your Oracle at home, your Nexus could be in serious trouble. So if you get away with this, it feels nice. And 2 unit openers into a Nexus often go into a faster Twilight build. So like double Oracle into Twilight. That is, at least, that is kind of how I view it.
Interesting. I would think that you also just can make more drones or probes because the Nexus is earlier. And then just still play triple Oracle. I see triple Oracle very frequently from the earlier Nexus as well. As a Zerg.
Okay, that's interesting.
So
we're gonna see quick 2 gases here coming out. Before any type of Forged Twilight or before any type of Adept Warp-ins. So indeed, it's going to be a 3rd Oracle. Yeah, of course, it's just going to give you better eco as well. So now we're going to see the Forged Twilight. 4 minutes and 25 seconds. It's a pretty decent timing. I don't mind this at all. I really prefer this build over what he was doing last game around, as he hasn't warped in any extra Adepts. And if he doesn't do that and adds 2 more gateways here, or even 4 more gateways, we could be going into a really cool blink push as well. Now, or a charge attack still. Technically possible, yeah.
Exactly, you could also still be going charge icon if he wants to. Trying to punish Scarlett for what she has shown so far, because she went for a +1 melee last game with a very late Roach Warren. This game, instead, she's going early layer with a Roach Warren and an Evo Chamber, so this would be a lot better against Charged Archon builds. The way it usually works in ZVP is you want to have fast +1 melee against blink openers, because you can trade much better against stalkers on the map then, and Roaches are just generally bad against stalkers. And against Charged Lot builds, you kind of want a faster layer, and you want Roaches with Roach Speed, because you can defend that with a lot of drones in that case.
Double Adept shading into the broken position here. This is a very solid spot for Adept to be in. Killing 2 drones, as well as forcing a full worker pool. Triple Oracles try to deal some damage, but Scarlet with a quick Queen pool not gonna allow these Oracles to go anywhere at all. +1 range starts, Roach Speed starts, as well as a gold base that goes up. What are we thinking here with 3 more Overlords on the way? I guess that's just to get out of the supply block. Doesn't really indicate anything, but what are you feeling here?
I'm feeling maybe just a Roach. Because Trigger has shown that he wanted to go Blink into Storm with a very low gateway count. So he initially has a decent amount of units, but then later on he has very low amounts of units. Like his opener is actually greedy if he plays the same. Trigger is going for a fast forward base once again, and he did start the Robo already. So the question now is, does he go Robo Bay, or does he actually intend to go into something like Templar Archives? Templar Archives would be the ideal scenario for Scarlet, and for Trigger, if he just stays on Mass Stalkers or Robo Bay, that would be the best for him, because I'm pretty sure that Scarlet is all-inning at this point. You don't really take the gold base randomly here because it's exposed, it's more difficult to defend, and you can't go for any 8 gas.
Yeah, definitely true. As we see a couple of Ravagers being morphed already. 2 are out, 2, 3, 5 more on the way. So this is definitely going to be an all-in. Second robotics facility as well as a Robo Bay. We're seeing cannons being added in. We're seeing batteries being added in as well. And I think these are good calls here coming out of Trigger. He also isn't on a very low gateway count. I think 6 gateways is definitely enough to deal with this. All of his Oracles are still alive, although a little bit low on energy. Except for this one that doesn't have a lot of HP.
It's important for him to actually realize. So if he starts doubting himself, because there's a lot of drones here on the gold base, which are obviously just put in the 3rd base of Scarlet. If he starts doubting himself, he resumes pro production, starts taking extra gases, starts something like a Templar Archives. Things can still go very, very wrong, because he invests a lot into this double Robo and the Robo Bay, and Colossus is also not the right choice here. Disruptors would be a lot better against the Roach then.
Oh, definitely true. As these Stalkers here are happy trading, Trigger's not aware of that run by that's being set up. Could even go for maybe a surround on these Stalkers, but I think Scarlet's just going to try and enter the natural here. And indeed, that is what's happening. Going to force a big warp in there, as well as a recall. 3 Stalkers go down before the warp in finish. This allows Scarlet to move across the map. Will move into 2 stasis wards. That means that 7 units will be stuck, but the supplies are not looking great for Trigger. He's floating quite a bit of cash as well, as he isn't building disruptors yet from his second robotic facility either, and I think that is just a bit of an error.
Yeah, he also lost a lot of units. He did also re-probe, like he resumed probe production, and at this point it's very difficult for him to even just... Oh no, the Colossus is spawning in front of the roaches, but Scarlet's not paying attention. Very lucky for Trigger there, honestly, because if that Colossus goes down, I don't think there's any hope left. As she is going on top of the exposed battery, though. He had to pop the super battery there because it was the only battery he had left. He's not paying attention to his main base against the roaches. I think Trigger is getting a little bit outplayed here in map 2 on Alpiona.
Yes, that is definitely true. As Scarlet with a swift Roach Ravager Queen move out, +1. Just kind of walking over Trigger. Lots of cash in the bank still for Scarlet, of course. Has that gold base as well behind his. Roach is now entering the fort. Roaches in the main are still alive. We're going to get another warp in there as finally the extra gateways finish up. But at this point, the eco is not there anymore to support these extra gateways. Disruptors being added into the mix, but all of this is just going to be a bit too little, a bit too late. This Oracle will fall to the biles. Trigger blinks back and he's trying to warp in something, but this is not going to be a hold here anymore. His 4th base is falling, his 3rd base is falling, his main is not mining. Trigger is dead.
Yep, as dead as it really gets. He's even readying it to disruptors forward, doing everything he has in order to try and save his 3rd base somehow, but it's just not enough units. He's getting tripled the supply by Scarlet and has to tap out 2-0 for Scarlet in a very convincing manner as well.